behind the headlines, and we're reporting again on what we ranted on yesterday, and that is the numbers coming from the first 6 months of data in Washington State from the Washington State Patrol on how many THC positive drivers there are. There are 746 of them in the first 6 months, compared to about 1,000 THC positives for all of the year. For the past 4 years, each year about 1,000 of them, and this has caused the prohibitionists to scream that stone driving is up by 50%. But the data released for the Washington State Patrol don't actually say that. And as they raise this alarm for stoned driving following the legalization of marijuana, they're missing 4 very important facts. Number 1, legally stoned driving is on the decline. From 2009 to 2012, the Washington State Patrol made about 20,000 stops each year for suspected impaired driving, and Washington State Patrol is on pace to hit that same number this year. So, it doesn't appear that cops are seeing more impaired drivers on the road. Of those 20,000 stops, cops ordered a blood test about 1/4 of the time. About 4,800 tests in 2009, rising to about 5,300 tests in 2012. Of those tests, about 1/5 of the time they came back positive for THC. This year, however, tests are coming back positive for THC about 27% of the time. The media have thereby declared that there's a great rise in stone driving because 745 tests come back THC positive over 6 months, when the average is about 1,000 a year. But by law, stoned driving is now defined as being over 5 nanograms of THC per milliliter of blood. In 2009 through 2012, all of the THC positive tests over or under 5 nanograms was a stone driver. In 2013, those drivers testing below 5 nanograms are under the limit. And out of those 745 THC positives, only 420 of them, yes, really, 420, of those drivers were over the limit. So that's on pace for 840 legally stoned drivers, which is far less than the 1,000 per year when all drivers with THC were considered stone drivers. And 325 of those THC positive drivers who were under the limit now have a DUI defense that they didn't have before legalization. But still, aren't 745 THC positives on pace for 1,490 over a year? And isn't that almost a 50% increase from previous years? Yes, but the proportion of those positives that are legally stoned is down. In 2012, 61.6% of the almost 1,000 THC positives were over 5 nanograms. This year, it's down to 56.4% of the THC positives that are over the limit. See, part of the reason we're seeing more tests showing stoned drivers is because cops are focusing more on stoned drivers. This year, the Washington State Police is on pace to conduct 200 more blood tests than the year before. Every year since 2009, the number of tests ordered has increased about 167. But now that there's a per se 5 nanogram standard for stone driving, cops have more incentive to go get the blood test in a marijuana case. Cops are also being trained to focus more on the behaviors indicative of stone driving. But just because you're catching more fish, that doesn't mean there's actually more fish. You may just be using bigger nets in better locations for longer periods of time. It's illustrative to remember that the patrol tells us they're still making the same number of stops for suspected impaired driving. So all the data are telling us is that cops are more likely to suspect and test for marijuana now than before legalization. And not only have we not seen an increase in impaired driving, but impaired driving fatalities are plummeting. The Washington Traffic Safety Commission keeps records on how many people died in Washington roads as part of its Target Zero program. In 2009, 169 people died in an alcohol-related traffic fatality, and 140 died in a drug-related traffic fatality. That's all drugs, not just THC. Those figures have declined every year, and in 2013, through 6 months, the state is on pace for an annual 88 alcohol fatalities and 80 drug-related fatalities. So they're all going down. This supposed danger on the roads cannot be demonstrated by any crash or fatality data. All they've got is they're catching more people who have THC in their systems who probably had it in their systems before and just weren't getting caught. But that's not going to stop Kevin Sabet from trying to make hay out of it. That's for damn sure. We're going to talk more about Kevin in Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. There's a 3-part interview with him, and in 2 of the parts, I get name checked. So stick around for that. In the meantime, it's 4:20, at least in the mountain time zone. So enjoy yourself if you can, and if you can't, we'll enjoy ourselves for you. The Russ Belville Show. We'll be right back.